part 2 of our 4-part series of Planet Chicago with our special guest, Campbell the dog. 77 flavors, let's get it. Boy, hey.
Shout out to Kevin.
I'm saying we shout him out every episode.
Well, he's so talented. That's why.
That's a bop, man. Like, honestly.
Damn,
that was a abrupt stop. Sorry for that.
I know. I love that. Welcome back to another episode of 77 Flavors. If you're new here, welcome. We cover Chicago history. Every week we tell you a brand new story about a cool piece of history that affects the United States as a whole and sometimes the world.
Okay.
So we're here to prove to you that Chicago's the best city.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
That's it. That's it. That's normally I would hit you with a coin right here, but I'm not going to do that right now.
If you're coming back, welcome back. This is part 2 of our Plan of Chicago series this month, which has been so fun. I absolutely love it. If you're looking for more content, make sure you're following us on all our socials. It's at 77 Flavors CHI for Chicago everywhere. And you can experience more visuals, more of Dario talking to the camera, some pictures that we post throughout the week. So it's a lot of fun over there.
Yeah.
And check out our website. Our website is home to the show notes that I write every week, which you can also subscribe to and get it straight into your inbox through our Substack. So it's the same newsletter that is listed in the show notes. If you don't want to go to a website, you want to just get it on Monday morning into your inbox, you can do that. It's completely free. You still have to go to our website to subscribe.
Yep.
But once you do that, then you'll get it every week, and you don't have to worry about going to the website, which is beautiful, by the way. I would love for you to check it out.
Man, look, again,
it's okay if you don't.
Again, just shout out. You really been putting your foot in that newsletter.
I'm really enjoying it a lot. I feel like it gives a nice little kind of insight into more of the visual aspect. I'm a very visual learner, so I love seeing pictures. I love seeing videos. I love seeing the tangible items. So it's been really fun for me to practice my writing, and also I try to keep them short. I try to keep them like at max like a 5-minute read.
I think that's a good the way you got it. You've been nailing it.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and it's giving me an opportunity to explore more Chicago institutions that have archives and free archives. So, and I list all of those sources. So if you're ever listening to an episode and you're like, man, I wish they had expanded a little bit more on this one piece, I either would have done that in the show notes, or I would have linked you some sources that you can then go and kind of engage with a little bit more and learn more.
To be honest with you, we always gonna gain knowledge, so we always gonna have sources, right? You know, but honestly, we started to be our own source. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. Like, especially this episode.
That's my goal with the website, is I want it to be a place where people can then go. Like, once we have a bulk of these notes in there, people can go, and there's a search feature on our website, so you can just type in like Plan of Chicago, and then our notes would come up, and you can kind of read. And if you need more, you can go and read the other documents. But I kind of want it to be a home for people to then be able to use it as a resource for quick research. Or if you're trying to learn about a topic a little bit more, even if you don't listen to the podcast, which is totally fine. Yeah. So we this week we did a lot of fun things. We went to Lyric Opera for Madame Butterfly, which we love Lyric. They invite us to some of these shows to check them out. And I really enjoyed the show. I feel like the first act was very like visually just engaging. The set was beautiful. Yeah. And the second act was second and third act after the intermission was way more about the power of the performers. Yeah. Not that the first act wasn't, but the first act was just like visually so cool.
Yeah. It was, the visuals on that were crazy. I mean, like if you photosynthesis warning, before you go there to this,
it's beautiful.
Edition. But yeah, no, other than that, man, look, I thought it was good. The adaptation was a little different though. I mean, like
it's a modern twist on the classic Puccini.
Don't want to ruin it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I mean, the synopsis is available online. But,
I guess you can.
So it's a very old story. So most people that are fans of opera already know it. But if you're not a fan and this is new to you, it's a really cool story. So go to their website and kind of read about it if you're interested. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but again, it's
check it out.
We love Lyric. You can get pretty cheap tickets same day, probably like $30 or something. So it's a fun experience.
You realize we be at the opera every week. It feel like every time
season,
every episode obviously. So far, I feel like we always recapping something we did.
It's you know what?
At some show.
I always thought it was like inaccessible. Yeah. You know what I mean? I always thought it was hard to understand. You know, I don't speak Italian. I don't speak French. Yeah. Opera is really hard to understand. It's long. I don't know if I like opera. But we went the first time on, if you've never been, and I didn't know this when we first went, is that there's translation, like there's subtitles.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that. And that makes it way less intimidating.
You know, but what it is though too, is you gotta train yourself to be able to read and then go back to looking at the visuals. So because like something you gotta read fast too.
And sometimes I don't even read. I'm like enthralled in the story. Like you get the context
you get
of what's
on.
Happening.
But sometimes you need the actual content, the literal context. But I'll tell you, this ain't for y'all that read with y'all finger now. Okay, if you one of them,
only like two lines at a time.
If you one of these, why Chicago? No, this ain't for you. You might want to go ahead and have some earphones on.
No, I don't want to. No,
let them speak to you. You know what I mean? In English.
No. Here's the thing. It's repetitive because it's song. So, you know, they'll repeat the same line multiple times. You read it the first time, you get the idea.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah.
So it's really
it's good.
Enjoyable. The next show we're going to is Sophronia, which I'm really excited about.
Chicago boy.
Yes. And this is a very highly anticipated commission piece that Lyric commissioned a few years ago that is, you know, debuting this month. And so in April. And if I would put that on your list, if this is like your first opera, it's going to be amazing. I know it. I haven't seen it. I don't know any of the music, but
the preview that we saw last year,
it's just been talked about so much that I'm really excited about it. And I don't know. I want to encourage people to not feel intimidated by opera. I feel like it's a new passion of mine. And obviously we're lucky that we get invited to shows, but, Chicago is a great city to explore theater because you can find inexpensive. There's access to theater, especially if you're a student. If you're young, most schools will take you for free.
Yeah, right.
So it's amazing. Love them.
Right. There you go.
We also did a day in Uptown. We did Explore Uptown. Check out our Instagram for a kind of a preview of the wine walk that's coming up at the end of April, where you basically can go throughout Uptown and you stop into each shop. You can shop and there's going to be wine. Obviously you have to be 21 or over to purchase tickets. There's going to be NA options because some of you might know that I don't drink. So there was non-alcoholic options.
Here's the best part though. Aside from going to the different stops, because you're going to be going up in some businesses that don't have drinks and they're going to be having drinks for you. So you kind of like get to know the business, but also the incentive is the drinks. But the cool thing about it is if you have kids, right, you'll be able to drop your kids off at one of the participating day centers. They're not going to have the drinks there, though. They're just participating in the sense of they're going to be able to watch your kids. But you'll be able to drop your kid off and then join the walk.
Which is so nice because obviously, you know, some people don't have access to childcare on such short notice. So like,
so expensive too.
Right. So like you can drop your kids off and kind of do the walk and then come back and pick up your kids. I mean, we had a great time. We did like a little preview of it, so we'll post that content.
Shit,
I was sober.
It's good. You know. I'm making this claim here. I'm putting it into the universe, y'all. I'm doing my little workout. I've been working out for like the last, couple weeks. Running for about a month and a half. Not by any means like 5 days a week. Probably like 2-3 times a week. But the last 2 weeks I've been working out.
Yeah,
and I'm making this commitment right now that I am not going to have a drink for at least 30 days. And y'all know I mess with old fashions. So old fashions, May 1st, it's up. Your time is up. Your time is up. No, who knows?
I think it's a good
thing. Yeah. Your boy's slimming down. You know, this shirt ain't doing this on the podcast.
Damn.
Look at it. If you're watching this, if you're not watching it, I'm puffing it out.
I'm excited to get into this episode. I feel like,
but I want to talk about a hot take. I got mine.
Oh, you got?
I got my hot take.
Okay, what's your hot take?
Hot take Tuesday. Here's my hot take.
Tell me,
y'all. I absolutely don't like the sensationalization. I don't like the sensationalization of the Chicago accent. That get on my goddamn nerves, y'all. That Chicago French, that's a niche group of people here in Chicago. That's not the Chicago accent. That's one of the Chicago accents.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I've always wanted to say this, but it feels good to get it off my chest.
I'm happy for you. You know what's funny is when I first moved here, I couldn't hear the different accents. No, I mean, I meant to the U.S.
Okay.
I didn't know, like the only accent that stood out to me was a Southern accent. That was it. I couldn't tell the difference between like
New Yorkers and now they got accent.
Now I can tell the difference because we
got accent too though.
Right.
We do.
You like Chicagoans or?
Yeah, I'm just saying, as Chicago as a whole, we have
for sure.
We got, but here that goes to my point.
Like colloquialisms that are just Midwestern.
That goes to my point. It's like the Chicago accent got sensationalized because of SNL skit and all the super fans and the Swerskis and all those people made it a mainstream thing. So that's what people come from out of town.
But it's the same as like a New York accent. Like most
true.
New Yorkers don't have that.
But they have a broader, it is a little bit more blanket. That accent is a little bit more blanket. Chicago really don't have, that ain't a lot of people. If I'm just being honest with you, it ain't a lot of people. Because I would argue, black folks got a different, when I was growing up, I didn't hear that Chicago accent that they made up.
Right.
I mean, they ain't make it up, but that is what it is.
That's considered like the mainstream.
That's the mainstream. Because there's people that do it, and I can tell you where they go. You go down Pulaski, they doing it down there. You know what I mean?
I think it's the interesting idea is like what is mainstream and like what is the actual, you know what I mean? Like things that enter into the mainstream are always fascinating to me.
You know what it is? It's when people say the French room, that one. The French room. I ain't never heard that.
Right.
Like, and I'm born and raised in Chicago.
It's a
my
large
grandmama used to say, go sit in the front room.
Yeah.
We in the front room. Now but French room, we ain't never. Y'all, we ain't never. I ain't never. But
I have no input because I didn't grow up here, so I don't.
They just make me Chicago.
You know what's funny is my cousin speaks that way. He's half Arab, half half Chicago. No. He grew up here. He grew up on the white south side of Chicago.
Okay, well,
and that's how he has that accent. His mom was.
They just get on my nerves when they
Irish.
I guess what it is when they say that's our accent, because out of towners be pulling up to me, be like, "Do you say Chicago? Do you French?" I'm black. I don't say none of that. I'm sorry.
That is a hot take, Dario.
Okay, that's a hot take.
That's a hot take.
Sure. I think black Chicago.
I think that's hotter than my I hate Oreos take.
Black Chicago, it is, because I know a lot of people from Chicago are going to be like, that's a Chicago. Yeah, whatever. You want to get?
I want to get into this.
You said let's lock in. Yeah, y'all. So we continue in the story of the plan of Chicago, which was formulated in 1909. We left off at the Gardens and how they started that, right? So, in short, go back, look at that. But the Gardens were the means to keep the people happy, safe, healthy, and to beautify the city, right? Yeah. But go ahead. I kind of want to emphasize a piece that we did talk about last time, but I just want to reiterate it, is that this plan was made without the majority of the population in mind. Like they didn't take into consideration like there was no like community voting or like no one had an input. It was like these people had money and this is what they thought was best. And we're going to get into it when we talk about how they implemented or how they attempted to implement some of this stuff. When it came to like moving people around and like it still happens. Like eventually when we talk about like eminent domain and stuff like that, it's still true. Like it's what a wealthy group of people thought was the right thing to do, which is really fascinating. Yeah. I won't say that like everything they did was wrong or everything they did was right. It was just an interesting way to approach a growing city. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So today we talking about the transportation aspect of it, right? And the concept for this change is the city was populated. Yeah, trains were running the town. And we needed to get around. People needed to get around, and they need to do it conjointly, right? We needed to work together hand in hand. Yeah. You got these new parks that you're trying to, propose. How is that going to work with what we already have going on? Like just train tracks laid everywhere. Mm-hmm. And aside from that, the trains didn't have proper terminals, and thousands of trains oftentimes just sat on tracks. Yeah. Just sat still, waiting to be used and offloaded and things like that. Yeah. So This brought about the Central Depot idea, where Chicago, we talk about a civic center, Chicago was going to have a depot for the trains.
Yep.
So they can go somewhere, right? And now here's the a number, direct quote from the book here, which, by the way, we still talk about the plan of Chicago and
by the commercial club.
So that's what I'm quoting here. 95% of Chicago's freight traffic in and out of the city was done by railroad, and 5% was by water. So you think about it, everything that's including what Chicago is shipping out,
right,
and what people are bringing in to the city.
Yep.
From all over the country.
That's not surprising.
It's not. No, it's still like that. I mean, not high, as high, but very high numbers, right? Yeah. And according to the analysts, it wasn't going to change in the future. That was also a direct quote. They were like, "We don't see this changing,"
right?
Because again, they understood Chicago's position of power.
Yeah. Also, like, planes didn't exist.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think what did the moon happen? The moon was in 63, was 63, 67 or something like that. The moon landing.
Yeah.
And that was what 40 years after the first plane, the Wright brothers took off or something like that. Yeah. I know I got the numbers wrong, but I know the moon landing happened in 67.
We're at least a decade or so before the plane.
We 2-3 decades.
Yeah. Like a commercial flight didn't take off until way later.
Yeah. Now, the notion was to put both the trains and the boat freight in one area, right? So that they could centralize. And they refer to this. It is very interesting how they spoke in, just tangent here. This book, they were very passionate about what they believe Chicago. Daniel Burnham had them boys in that office, was like, yo, we believe in this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we know. They did some research. It was a lot of thought process, but it was a lot of hope in there too.
Yeah.
Banking on stuff, because you didn't have super scientific numbers. It was just we see what they are doing in other countries. We see what they've done. We about to put all that together, and we about to make this new thing that the world has never seen.
Right.
That's where I'm coming from. It's a little bit lofty. Not a lot of it. Sure. A lot of it lofty because a lot of it didn't happen. Yeah. But yeah, I just want to preface that because they use the term a center of gravity because, and that makes sense. And they didn't break it down, but we could break it down. The center of gravity is where you are the most centered and all your heavy parts is in balance with the lightweight parts. It makes sense. Chicago was top heavy with people, and then top heavy with trains compared to boats and things like that. So it's interesting. I put that in my little red here because I was like, center of gravity is something I've never heard.
Yeah.
And this is where they decided what's going to be built around the city.
Yeah. I think the most interesting part while I was looking into this was kind of like, what are the three main things that he was trying to solve with this plan? And it was, his main focus was, he kind of almost obsessively wanted to make the Chicago's business area just huge. Like, he wanted the Loop to be just a monumental thing. Yes. I think one of the articles I read was talking about that he projected that at 1.1 million people would work outside of the within the Loop. Yeah. Which I think the maximum at any point was like 400,000, which I mean is still a great number of people, but 1 million people to work within the Loop is crazy. They also wanted to increase transit routes above and below ground. So I'm sure you'll get into that in a little bit. And then the last piece was having 1 million employees in the business district, which is kind of crazy. And it was a lot of like the transit rails kind of looked like a tangled web. There's a picture that I will include in my notes that was just baffling how these trains worked. How didn't they all just ram into each other at all times?
Man,
that's the question. Which I'm sure they did. I feel like that is one of the main problems that they wanted to solve. Is like it was inefficient. It wasn't working properly. Chicago grew too fast.
Man. Alley-oop. So there's a lot of things I didn't write down in this. And if you are listening, if you are watching, I would suggest go get this book because there's so many things that I could write down, but I'm trying to keep this podcast palatable, right?
Yeah.
But I would just encourage you to, if you care enough, go get the book, read what is in this book, because to your point, they basically said the train system, not just here in Chicago,
right,
but New York, Boston, all these other places, just trash, absolutely trash, because I think almost verbatim they put in here, and I can't find it right now, but they put in here and they said, Chicago just laid shit down.
Right.
We just laid stuff down.
That's true.
It's true. It's true. Chicago, after it burned down, we just laid stuff down because I think you mentioned a couple episodes, we just wanted to rebuild. You know what I mean? Like, you just wanted to get things back up and running.
No real plan.
No plan. So in my notes, I did write down, there's 2 diagrams, because along with this central depot, they showed sketches of what their plan was, right? And the plan was to have a dock system, right? And the docks were centered around the boats, even though they had 5%. But if you can have the boats that were going to come, since not a lot of them, you put the boats in one place, that's where the trains should go.
Yep.
Trains are going to go centralized to that. What they're going to do is, and this is all freight, y'all. Freights, goods, commodities, things like that. These are not people. They are going to go right where the boats, ready to be loaded up and or offloaded, and then move out from the city from there. Same thing with the boats. The boats were going to be docked, loaded, unloaded, whatever the case was, and then keep on going. And it's cool because they show that the first one, very interesting to me, the first dock, and I say first because there's 2, was at the mouth of the Chicago River.
Right.
So right now where our docks are, the locks, I should say, where the river opens up, the gate, if you've ever been on the architectural tour, if you've been walking down it, you've seen what we're talking about. It opens up into the harbor and to Lake Michigan.
Yes.
That's where they wanted the dock to be for the trains. Now we continue. This is where they also wanted to put the big warehouses. So all the major warehouses, they call them the big warehouses, what they said, were proposed to be here, and that congestion could be centralized. Yeah. That congestion. Right. So you think about things like Fulton Market.
Yeah.
I mean the Mart.
Yeah. They did talk a lot about, in other parts of the plan, about how certain areas needed to be kind of like eliminated. Yeah. And it was a lot of those like markets think of like where Canal and Roosevelt specifically, because that was one of the sites of the proposed, which later became Union Station at Jackson and Canal, but they wanted it at Roosevelt and Canal because they thought that would be the perfect spot for the station to be. And they got a lot of pushback. I mean, it eventually went up, but they didn't want, the city didn't really want to put a station there. Yeah.
Look, y'all, I love Chicago. This shit is this is fascinating because like all the things that we're saying, and I'm glad you interjected when you're doing, because like, I want y'all to be thinking about this too, because we're going to be naming streets and things like this. I'm coming up real soon, naming some streets. And I want you to think about what I'm saying now, and I should probably preface this. What I'm saying right now is according to the 1909 plan.
Right.
I understand where streets are right now because it's going to get real tricky. You're going to be like, what? And I'm not misspeaking. I'm just reading directly from the book. Okay. I'm glad you said that because the next one was actually in the next one of these docks was supposed to be by the Calumet River. And they got a diagram. I put it down here on page 65. It's the diagram, what is that? 50, 60, 70, 72. Diagram 72. And it shows the depot at Calumet River. Now, both of these were going to be the harbors that they were going to be connected underground.
Right.
Underground through the water.
That was a big part of the plan.
That's a big part of the plan. But think about this. This is underground through the water,
right,
and then partially land. And this whole total plan was going to consist of 4 different parts. The freight center, which the freight center was going to be a centralized place, the 2 harbors, and the connecting system, right? And the connecting system, the train system, underground or above ground, played a big role here, right? And this kind of leads us to the streets.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about streets, we kind of game plan before the episode. We're not going to go into the streets, how they change the grid system.
Yeah.
Just how they envision the streets to actually look.
And in terms of like along the theme of transportation, right?
Yeah.
More of that than anything. One of the cool things that I found while we were doing research is the landmark designation for the Chicago and Northwestern Terminal, which was really fascinating because it was built by Charles Sumner Frost and Alfred Granger. And this duo actually designed like 80 rail specific buildings, rail stations across the country.
Yeah.
More than 80.
So
I feel like at some point. So they were the architect duo that designed that Northwest Terminal complex. And what's really interesting about that one is it's one of the few buildings that are left of that like original early days of the plan of what the rail systems were going to look like. Mm-hmm. It was built in the style that we talked about last time, which is the Beaux Arts style. And it was, obviously Chicago has its own style of architecture, school of architecture. And we have, so there's not a lot of that. So one of the arguments of like, why do you landmark this building is that it was one of the first of its style in Chicago. It also looks like a Roman aqueduct, which is really fascinating and aligned with the plan. Yeah. Because, the masonry that's what they wanted. Other buildings that Frost and Granger designed were the Navy Pier, Low House, and Chicago Club. Yeah. Yeah. Which I completely forgot that.
Navy Pier, that's where I know the name from. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we probably talked about Chicago Club too, to be honest with you. Yeah.
But one cool thing is like right ahead of this plan in 1906, the railroad carried 45,000 passengers a day and 24 million people a year. Isn't that insane?
I think we talked about these numbers
when we did the railroad episode. It's just so interesting to read it again. It's a 1906 article from the Tribune that announced the building of this Chicago and Northwestern Terminal. This is 1906, so this is even before they were like, let's organize this a little bit more. Right. And it was they picked this location specifically because it was west of the river. Yeah. And they were like, oh, we can avoid the bridges going up and down, delaying the trains, which is why this whole plan came about. And it was such a not the reason the plan came about, but why transport was such a big part of the plan was because it was, the bridges were causing huge delays. Obviously, nothing was organized. The tracks were overlapping, but it was interesting. Just like a few years before, it was still a big issue. Still a big issue.
Before we move on to the streets real quick, there's one part I do want you to think about too. It's like we talked about last episode, part 1, about how they wanted Chicago to be the largest city in the world. Think about the second depot was going to be down in Calumet. Yeah. By the Calumet River. That's just wild. It's just wild how big they wanted Chicago to be. They really thought that land was going to be Chicago. Yeah. Now, to the streets. Here's something that when you put it in perspective of where their mind was at, and you just hit on that about the people moving, right? Goods brought into the city happened in the afternoon and at night. Yeah. So when you think about like restaurants and any business that had anything delivered to them, that happened in the afternoon and at night. Imagine if that happened now, when deliveries were happening in rush hour through the night. Okay. There ain't no way, bro.
Yeah. And I think like wheat, had like cattle, all that kind of stuff is what was being delivered. Yeah. Cows mooing.
Yeah, right. Right. And that's probably where the bridge broke down. Anyway.
I mean, it is the Rush Street
Bridge. Yeah, right. We know that for a fact. Yeah. They thought that this could be done better at night. So what they said, not only can it be done better at night, but through trolley, not farmers bringing stuff into the city on their little car, their buggies or whatever. No, trolley and elevated lines. Yeah. So they were thinking doing this from 1 a.m. to 7 in the morning. They thought it would save wear and tear. And by they, I'm talking about commercial club people that are in this book here. So that was their thinking, the setup of this, okay? Chicago streets were proposed to be circuits and radial, y'all. So I'm sure we all heard, I think I mentioned
radial?
Yeah,
what does
circle.
That mean?
Around the circle. So I mentioned Paris.
Right.
That's the image that I saw a lot as a kid and what a lot of people talk about. But when you read this plan, no, that's true. They wanted it as a civic center and then go around around that center in a circle.
Which the civic center also never happened. I mean.
Hold on. So the first, and they did them in circuits. Okay. So the way they didn't do them in circuits, but the plan was to put them in these, what's called circuits. And if you think about a circuit course, what happens with a circuit course? It goes in a circle, right? And so they were calling it a circus. They were calling it a circuit. The first main circuit was Michigan Avenue to the east, Canal Street to the west, 16th Street to the south, and Kinsey to the north.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Kinsey to the north. Now, this was the main circuit, like I said. This circuit was for, the trains, cars, everything. And the thought was this was going to be centered around the Civic Center, which the Civic Center, to them, what they wanted the Civic Center of Chicago to be was Halsted and Congress, y'all.
Right.
And if you are familiar with where that is, obviously Greektown. If you don't know, that's Greektown. But that's also the Jane Byrne Exchange.
Yeah.
Right there is where they thought the Civic Center.
Yeah. Well, they thought that like the city would expand,
would be bigger
and like the main business district could be bigger.
Yeah. And so for them, the main post office was supposed to be right there. All the main happenings was supposed to be
which it could have. It could have extended. I guess everything stayed closer to the loop.
I'm sure as we get to part 4 is when we're going. Four. We're going to talk about how it fell apart.
Yeah.
How this all fell apart and where we are today.
Yeah.
The subway is supposed to follow that same circuit, right? Now, there were multiple circuits, and the way this was supposed to be, and this is the radio part of it, I'm giving hand visualizations. These zations? I can't get my hands this episode.
Yeah.
What is going on? Sensationalized? Zation? Sensationalization? That don't sound right.
That doesn't sound like a word.
It don't sound like a word.
Sensationalizing?
Sensationalizing. There it is. That's the one. Anyway.
We got there eventually.
we got there eventually. So what they thought, Halsted and Congress Civic Center.
Yep.
First little Civic circuit was right, according to the map here, right? It looked like it was just underneath that. And that's where the Michigan Avenue circuit was, right? That's going to be like the main businessy area where all the important stuff happens. And then from there, they can have their own circuit where they can branch out to the city so that all that congestion don't go out to the other circuits. Now, the other circuit was meant for handling some freight and passengers. So now as you get out, the circle expands. Now you got more. This is for freight that need to go to businesses or people, and people can ride these now. Now, the inner circuit, which was the main one, was also like I said, post office, but that was life produce commodities so that it can like be dispersed. Water, sewer, power, all that stuff was the center. Now, the second Boulevard Circuit, which was, they considered this, the way I read it, it's literally the second Boulevard Circuit, but it was kind of like the main business area. Was kind of like a backup plan for in case that main circuit just got overran.
Yeah.
And that consisted of Michigan Avenue to the east, 22nd Street to the south, Ashland to the west, and Chicago Avenue to the north. So pretty damn massive.
Yeah.
That's a pretty massive second circuit in case you need it, to kind of get around the city, deliver stuff, and keep away the congestion. Yeah. Now, they thought this was going to result in cleanliness and everything. Yeah. And they did their research on, based off of Vienna. I wrote Vienna down here, Vienna, Austria. And so in these circuits, they were like, we're going to use a lot of viaducts. We're going to use a lot of viaducts, a lot of underpassages. We've been to Vienna. They got a lot of bridges and shit that you can walk over and like to get to different parts of the town. Granted, we stayed on one part, but we walked pretty far over a park. So it's kind of cool that we were in Vienna, and that's where the Plan of Chicago, one of the concepts. And in these viaducts were the transportations that Sarah was talking about, right? About how where Union Station was supposed to be. Here is considered 12th Street. And fun fact, y'all, reading this.
Yeah. 12th Street wasn't renamed until.
Right. 12th Street they call it the Grand 12th Street.
Yeah.
That was massive. That's now Roosevelt.
Right.
That's Roosevelt.
Which is still massive.
It's still massive. And reading the plan of how they looked at Roosevelt, and I'm gonna flip through here because these last few notes I didn't write down because I just want to read it. It's just so much to write down. The way they thought about 12th Street, Roosevelt was kind of like the main start of where their circuit and circle was, right? Yeah. And it was supposed to go to Canal, right? Mm-hmm. Canal Street. And then from there, it was going to make its way to the city center, Halsted, and Congress, which, you know, is only probably like a 5-minute drive from Roosevelt Canal. Now. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, depending on day, time of day.
And depending on mode of transit.
Yeah, right. You know, it could take a little while. But like, so you were going to cut back up north there to go to the city center. This how big they were. And I don't know if I'm stretching this or not, y'all. I don't know if I'm stretching this, but I think I realize, you know, the question of, is it L? What does L stand for? Elevated, loop. What does it stand for? That's always a debate. I'm going to read you this, right? And this is referring to 12th Street and how they envision this looking, right?
Okay.
First, to carry the elevated loop along the side and east of the west side passenger system, along the side and south of the 12th Street passenger system, thence, they use weird words, thence over to the alley L at present. Around by Lake Street and across to the west passenger station, forming a complete overhead circuit. The loop. Like they planned the loop to be not where we think it is now, right? But right where they said it. Second, there should be a surface. There should be a surface streetcar circuit following the same route with minor circuits within it. That's crazy, y'all. Third, there should be an underground streetcar system following substantially the same route as first mentioned above, but extending under the main branch of the river, running east and west or at Michigan Street. That's
wild.
That's wild to hear them basically describe Wacker, the loop, and the subway, the Jack's red line. Yeah. The red line / blue line. That area right there.
Yep.
That's crazy. And we know for a fact that we got the pedway system because of this. Right around a few decades later, right? We did an episode on how the pedway system was a circumstance if they were about to get rid of the L. Right. So here we are with the plan of Chicago where they like, we're going to build the L, you know, the loop. The plan we talked about, they were like, man, we're going to tear that shit down and use the underground system. I can't wait till we get to where this shit fell apart.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, because like, to me, reading this, I don't know about you get your thoughts on it. Was this going to work? You know what I mean? Like, was this?
I think it was very ambitious and very, very, very expensive. Yeah, I mean, even like when we talk about the widening of the streets, especially, you know, they widened Roosevelt and it took years to complete that because it was like not until after the World War that wasn't done until after the World War, especially the bridge, because like there was delays and stuff, but they did finish it. They did widen Roosevelt. And like when they widened Michigan Avenue and created like the double decker situation where cars go on the bottom or freight goes on the bottom, you know, people go on top. The city had to purchase 51 properties on the east side of Michigan Avenue and south of the bridge and west of what was at the time Pine Street before it was renamed to Michigan Avenue. And so it was very expensive to just do these little bits and pieces of changing. Even when they built Union Station, they had to straighten the south branch of the river. Which is great. Like what?
Yeah, you brought that. They had to straighten that part up. Like, be like, hey, look. And honestly, Roosevelt is the way it is. And I mean, there's some numbers in here. They actually go over the technical numbers of where, how wide Roosevelt was supposed to be. 150 feet wide at one point, at its widest, 80 feet wide at the at another point. It's just, I don't know, man. Like seeing this plan, you could have not imagined Chicago would have boomed.
It would have had to be empty for it to be like built this way.
And you have to do it fast. Here's a quote, right? Again, from the book. We cannot act too promptly in regard to creating and maintaining perfect street circulation, car circulation, and extension of the area for the heart of Chicago.
Yeah.
They were like, bro, this is imperative.
Right. Which is fair, because at some point it was, I wrote something down here that was kind of fascinating, because people could only access the trains through one street, which is through the bridge.
Yeah.
Let me find that little note, because I wasn't ready to get to it.
You're right, but that's where they came up with the idea of they wanted to have terminals where people can on and off by these viaducts.
Yeah, so it's part of the Chicago, and after the Chicago Northwestern Terminal, you would able to access it from 5 streets instead of just Wells Street and the bridge, which was kind of really difficult to access. I don't know. It was fascinating. Yeah. I feel like even when they started building the bridges and on Michigan Avenue, that was monumental, because now this bridge could carry 7 times more traffic than Rush Street Bridge, which collapsed like 5 times.
And here's the crazy thing too, is they mentioned in the book, they talk about how they wanted the type of bridge that Chicago has. And obviously we know Canal Street was that first bridge that went up. But now reading the plan, why it was the first one. It had to get to the center. Yeah. Heart of Chicago. Right. It had to get to the heart. So that's why they made that the first one. Yeah. That's, to me, my mind was blown putting all this together. Like, damn, that's why Roosevelt is the way it is. That's why Roosevelt got the train station right there. Yeah. That's why Roosevelt got, it kind of shrinks up right there by Michigan Avenue. It says that in the book. Because if you ever go to that lockjaw right there, Michigan Avenue, and it's wider now, but like, man, it's just crazy to see. That's how they were thinking. And some of the plan was going. Yeah. But most of it.
Some of it was accomplished.
It was. But, and the reason why I feel like the parts that were accomplished were the parts that were already in place in Chicago that they could easily like get to and do. Like that was already there. So they were like, we ain't got to build nothing up. Right. We could just go ahead and put that.
But it was still very expensive and time consuming.
Yeah.
I mean, like widening a street was not easy. I know that they widened Western at 26 miles of Western was widened and 20 miles of Ashland. Sheridan Road was, made bigger, was enlarged. And in the plan, Sheridan, they wanted it to become a highway that goes to Milwaukee. Yeah. That never happened, obviously. But it was still like made larger than what it was at the time. So even like Wacker, what's funny, not funny, kind of not funny, haha, funny, sad, is that Charles Wacker couldn't make it to the opening of Wacker because he was sick. Right. That's so sad.
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah. And that didn't start until like the 1924, and it wasn't completed until 1926. Yeah. So 15, 16 years after the plan. I don't know. It was just fascinating how these like they had such big plans for.
It's good questions. It's good questions to ask, because like, and I'm glad we're asking these questions as we going along with this book too, because it's like, well, now we know streets is next. We talking about streets next episode, but like this was the foundation that they thought, and in their mind, they had assuredness that this is going to work. Yeah. And they kept selling it to we need to do this. We need to separate the cars and the people. Yeah. We need to have a separate transit system. We need to get all them trains out of Chicago so that we can build up our streets how we want it to be. If this plan had actually worked, Chicago might have been the biggest, it's beautiful, to us it is, but it might have been objectively the wildest city ever created.
And here's the thing, maybe in the last episode, we'll touch a little bit on like the next 3 sets of plans that came after this one. Because 1909 wasn't the last plan. No, Chicago. It's not like the city was like, oh, we're done. Right. Like, obviously, there's more. There's a 2045 plan that's in place right now. So we'll touch a little bit. Plan. We'll touch a little bit on. I said 1945.
No. I said
2045. we'll touch a little bit more on those to see like what are some things from 1909 that are still in these plans. What was in 1965 that's still taken from 1909? Are there things that we are missing from that plan that should be in the future? But
I can't wait to go over why this shit broke down. Yeah, I cannot wait.
I think for this episode, it's we've talked about where we were 10 years before, where we were 10 years after last episode. So, but in terms of transit, just to add a little bit to that, obviously, 1890 was the streetcars, and then the elevated line started around 1895. So we're minimal. We talked a lot about where we were before this plan happened. So I don't want to reiterate what we just said, but that's kind of where we were. In terms of things that you can read to learn a little bit more, again, I'm still like petitioning for people for HBO to make a show about Chicago's 1871 to 1930. That's my dream in life.
That's your area.
If I ever become a millionaire, that will be what I will do with my money.
Run it up.
But if you want to learn more obviously nonfiction books, there's an interesting illustrated history book called Chicago Transit. And just a little blurb from what it is. It's combining nostalgia and historical detail. David Young tells the colorful story of transportation in Chicago from plank roads of 1850 to the streetcar of the 1920s to the articulated bus of the 1990s. Illustrated with more than 90 photographs, maps, and Chicago Transit reveals the political shenanigans, business deals, and technological changes behind the transportation system that made Chicago the city that works. And then there's The L by Bruce Moffett, which is the development of Chicago's rapid transit system. Building Chicago's Subway by David Sadowski. Take a trip underground and see how Chicago's I Will Spirit overcame challenges and persevered to help with the successful building of the subway. Weird that it's called Subway, but we don't call them Subway.
Yeah, they were back in the day.
I'll let that slide.
They were.
No, we don't really have a subway per se. But yeah, those three books. And then I will link in the show notes. There's a nice collection that the Chicago Public Library has put together about Chicago history in general. So I would list that in there if you're interested in kind of one of the librarians made a collection that's has some really cool books in there. So I'll list that for you. And then if you're looking for episodes to learn more, check the links and we'll have the Burnham episode and the railway episode linked.
We got to.
Same ones as last week. Just because we're kind of in the same topics here.
I'm very curious now, future episode for us to kind of go over, revisit some things. I don't know what that looks like right now.
I kind of want to do like street specific episodes. Like I want to learn the history of Roosevelt. You know what I mean? Like just let's do one on that.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking because like we've been down in the tunnels.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and I know Chicago got tunnels and like they show it every now and then you can find the tunnels, somebody went down there. But now knowing that they were super functioning, and what the plan was and like how they started, like who knows what that shit was like. Was that was part of it for sure. Yeah. Because they mentioned a lot of times all the stuff that's there already.
Right.
We got stuff that's there already. Let's just use that. But then you think about things like the merchandise mart.
Yeah.
When we did the street names, we did we rode by merchandise mart, we did how that was one of the ways that trains came through. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, like now I want to go back. Reading through this plan is like really changing my thought process on like how Chicago came to be. You know what I mean? Like, because like we know this stuff didn't last, you know what I mean? Like, but what did they start and how did they fall apart?
Yeah.
Like more in detail. Like we know how things kind of on a surface level, when you talk about disinvestment to different places and corruption and all, we know that kind of stuff. But like, why didn't you continue with the dock? You know, like what was the conversation? Who got mad?
Time to, time to dig into the archives and find these letters where people were like, nope.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure they
want to see what city council members were like, absolutely, we're not doing that.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is that, man? Like, that's crazy. Yeah. Like, that's wild.
Speaking of city council, if you're listening to this episode in time, April 8th, Dario and I will be on a panel with former Mayor Lightfoot. talking about some of the archives of the city council
Yep.
that have only recently become available to the public. So we're going to be discussing that. It's free. You can sign up and come.
It's sold out.
Oh, well,
it's sold out. I just remembered the post. It's sold out.
Oh, well, stay locked in for future ones.
You got more.
That's all.
Before we get out of here, did you hear they were digging up for new buildings over in Streeterville, and they found boats that were used to right in the area where George Streeter planted his boat. And we know he built up the area to imminent. He said it's mine.
Basically,
yeah. And they dug up deep enough, and they found boats. One dude was like, "Bro, it looked like a boat. It's the way this is curving. This looked like a boat because that's all landfill right there." They dug it up, and they were like, "Bro, this is a boat."
Do we know? Do we know what year is it dated?
So they're saying right around the 1890, 1880, all that area.
Interesting.
And because they found, I think, bottles and other stuff. Because, all that shit was just dumb.
Yeah. Interesting.
Crazy.
Fascinating.
That's fascinating.
Anyway. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening and staying with us for another episode. If you enjoyed this one, please send it to someone you love. If you did not, that's all right. Come back next week.
We'll do better.
Part 3 of The Plan of Chicago. We're excited to wrap this up. So we'll have one more, part 4. But, getting closer.
We're halfway through.
Getting closer to the end. We'll see you then. Peace. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and we hope you loved it.
And if you could, please follow us on social media at 77 Flavors Shy on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter.
If you have any ideas or deep dives that you'd love us to do, please contact us at media@77flavorsshy. That's the number 77 flavors and shy for Chicago.com.
If you like visuals, please subscribe and follow and watch us on our YouTube channel at the same thing, 77 Flavors Shy, or search 77 Flavors of Chicago.
If you would like to support us monetarily, go ahead and click that Buzzsprout link in the description of this episode.
And as always, we gonna see you next week. Peace.